Facts to take me out. Fairy tales won't do it.
But I love when artists grit their teeth.
One of the fiercest rap feuds in recent memory has been between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. Fans' preconceived notions are being altered by the discovery of a recently leaked phone conversation between the two. The whole quarrel may have started with this purported phone call. The complete recording has been disseminated online, stirring fresh discussion. Numerous headlines have been generated by the conflict between Kendrick and Drake. And now there's another surprising turn this week. Now let's go back to 2013. The hip-hop industry was still reeling from Kendrick Lamar's verse on Big Sean's track Control. Many people saw this verse as a lyrical warning. I got love for you all, but I'm trying to murder you. Nick, trying to make sure your core fans never heard of you, Nick, was Kendrick's famous statement. That verse changed the hip-hop tone. However, there was a private phone conversation after. The public outcry, according to reports that are currently making the rounds on social media. In this leaked tape, Drake is purportedly heard saying to Kendrick, "You played that wrong." This implies that Kendrick made a tactical error by including names in his verse. If the tape is real, it provides fresh insight into how this well-known feud might have started covertly behind closed doors. The call suggests that competing bars weren't the only places where drama broke out. Personal warnings, mistakes, and a mounting sense of betrayal might have all been part of it. And now, years after it first surfaced, this leak is changing how people perceive the beginnings of one of hip-hop's most well-known songs. The actual events of 2013 must be reviewed in order to fully comprehend the context. When Kendrick Lamar sang his now famous verse on Big Sean's track Control on August 14, 2013, the tension started. Kendrick took aim at Drake and a number of other rappers in his verse. It was more than just a lyrical contest. It was a bold declaration. Kendrick was challenging others to answer and asserting his authority as the hip-hop king. Drake's first response was given in an August 30th, 2013, Billboard interview. It just sounded like an ambitious thought to me. That's all it was. I know good and well that Lamar is not murdering me at all on any platform.
He seemed to minimize the situation, but now that this leaked phone call is making the rounds, it's
possible that his response was really superficial. Drake didn't dismiss it as carelessly as he claimed, if the tape is authentic. Rather, it demonstrates that he took the initiative, phoning Kendrick and saying to him, "You played that wrong." This exchange completely alters the story. It presents Kendrick as probably acting too forcefully too soon, while making Drake seem strategic and cautious. What Drake meant by it is the question now. Was Kendrick thought to have violated an unwritten rap game rule? Or did that call actually signal the start of a protracted, smoldering dispute? This phone conversation, according to many enthusiasts, was the real spark. And there are questions about the timing of the leak. Social media was ablaze with tweets in July 2025 alleging that Drake was hoarding evidence of his private business activities and talks. Drake was quoted as stating, "And now I got proof. You called Lucien crying and used bots and Poliola to cover up the fact you got dog-walked," in a post on X, formerly Twitter. On July 10th, 2025, according to reports, Drake is the source of that shocking comment, and it's directed right at the top, if it's true. One of the most influential people in the music business is Lucien Grang, the CEO of Universal Music Group. According to the claim, Drake thinks that Kendrick Lamar called Grange in distress, and that there was backstage manipulation to use payola and bots to artificially increase Kendrick's fame. The drama escalates from rap to business warfare as a result of this claim. The remark's timing and legal context only serve to increase its weight and perplexity. Drake brought 2 lawsuits against Universal Music Group in January and April of early 2025. According to the lawsuits, G unjustly gave preference to Kendrick Lamar, citing the usage of bots and lowering license prices with Spotify and Poliola to exaggerate Not Like Us's success. These courts documents showed a great deal of hostility between Drake and Lucien Grang and other UMG executives. However, private pressure and emotional calls had not been mentioned up until this point. This current assertion is particularly explosive because of this. It links a private, behind-the-scenes dispute with public judicial actions. The lawsuits have been extensively covered by major media sites, including Variety, Billboard, and the Express Tribune. They've explained why Drake thinks Kendrick's 2024 ascent was aided by phony means. However, the accusation of crying to Lucien was not included in any of those pieces. Even Drake made lyrical jabs at disloyalty and backroom tactics in his song Fighting Irish Freestyle. Released on January 3, 2025, the supposed phone call between Kendrick and Grange was still not specifically mentioned. This conflict is far more complex than fans had thought, if the report turns out to be true. The most notable aspect is how this purported claim fits into a broader pattern of high-level tension, accusations and counterattacks. Kanye West's remarks, in which he ridiculed Lucien Grange as Drake's wealthy baby daddy, came to light again in November 2024, underscoring the power dynamics at work. The Daily Mail then reported Drake's purported attempt to ensnare Range's daughter-in-law, Sophia Richie, in the public dispute on February 13, 2025. However, this is much more than just music. Authenticity has always been at the heart of hip-hop, resolving disputes in person rather than behind business walls. Fans' perception of Kendrick's reliability may be impacted if Drake's allegations are accurate, and Kendrick did, in fact, get in touch with Lucien Grange throughout the feud. When things go out of hand, the culture respects people who deal with heat directly rather than bringing in executives. Beyond the news reports, this conflict has erupted into a more hazardous situation. Diss tracks are no longer the only ones. With increasing strain, it has become a real-world consequence. Violent occurrences and claimed threats endangering lives. The chillest incident occurred on May 7, 2024, only 3 days following Kendrick's release of Not Like Us. Drake's Toronto mansion was the scene of a drive-by shooting that evening. A security guard who was also referred to as a close friend suffered severe injuries. It wasn't just any old time. Tension between the artists peaked during the attack, which took place when Not Like US dominated the charts and hip-hop conversation. The attackers drove up to the mansion on Toronto's Bridle Path, yelled threats, and started shooting. According to Drake's court documents against UMG, the entrance door was hit by one bullet. The guard by another left him on the ground, bleeding. Others applied pressure with towels until assistance arrived over half an hour later, as emergency services were delayed. However, it didn't end there. Industry concerns were raised after it was reported that security breaches persisted on May 8th and May 9th, 2024, officially. A rap feud had gone too far and become a constant danger to safety. The incident on May 8th fueled the flames even more. Before being taken into custody by security, a trespasser allegedly dug under Drake's mansion's security barrier, slipped in and started yelling racist epithets and direct threats. Drake's legal team claims that these incidents weren't unique. The lawsuit directly relates these security breaches to the advertising of Not Like Us, alleging both the lyrics and the cover picture displaying a satellite image of Drake's home as inciting real-life violence. The weight of the charges, rather than the song's production or chart success, is what makes Not Like Us particularly incendiary. One of the song's most contentious lines accuses Drake of acting inappropriately toward children. The lyrics read, "Drake, I hear you like them young. You better never go to cell block 1. Drake's attorneys contend that these remarks were inciting and went much beyond the bounds of distraction. When those connected to Drake started making threats of their own, the dispute intensified even further. The top 5 can help with that. A Toronto rapper with a history of legal troubles and known ties to Drake, top 5, whose real name was Hassan Ali, had previously faced charges related to a shooting that killed a college student in 2021. Although he was not found guilty, the case enhanced his notoriety on the streets. Statements, interviews, live streaming, and top 5s brought the dispute to an additional level. He used ominous and explicit words to directly threaten Kendrick Lamar. He asserted in one film that Kendrick will be turned into Swiss cheese, a phrase frequently used to characterize someone who has been shot repeatedly. He continued after that. He referenced a particular investigation into Kendrick's inner circle, discussed potential drive-by shootings, and used language that law enforcement frequently interprets as evidence of premeditated conduct. These were not just threats. They were pointed, calculated, and mapped out. Even seasoned professionals like Tony Yao have recognized the dangers of the atmosphere surrounding this feud. This rap fight has evolved into a real security concern with long-term repercussions, as violent threats and attempted attacks are replaced by diss recordings. Personal safety was only one aspect of the growing worry. It concerned the possibility that this feud could grow into something far more significant. Industry insiders began to compare it to the 1990s East-West dispute that resulted in the deaths of the infamous Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur, IWAC 100 discussed the current situation and emphasized how grave the situation had become. WAC 100 also drew attention to the inconsistency in Top 5's threats by citing video that demonstrated him being physically subdued during previous fights. Although others dismissed it, Kendrick Lamar's circle's response demonstrated that this was not a one-sided dispute. Hit J3 and Smack, among other associates, promptly retaliated with their own threats. This led to a fresh round of combative interactions, demonstrating how quickly the dispute was getting out of control. The back and forth moved the situation from literary punches to something that felt perilously close to actual life: reprisal. The repercussions were immediate. Top 5 was arrested by Toronto police on January 24, 2025, on a number of gun-related crimes, including negligent firearm storage, unlawful possession, and possession of restricted firearms with ammunition. There was conjecture that his online behavior had a direct impact on the lawsuit because of the timing, which came just days after he publicly threatened Kendrick. The industry paid attention. In his commentary on the mayhem, Rick Ross pointed out a crucial distinction between violent language and competitive bars. He clarified that although rivalry is necessary for the spirit of hip-hop, this particular circumstance had gone too far and might potentially upend the entire genre. When Kendrick Lamar and SZA revealed their joint tour, which included a stop in Toronto on June 12 at the Rogers Centre, the risk became even more obvious. Suddenly, worries about public safety and artist safety spread around the world. Surfacing, the statement sparked intense speculation about the extent of this conflict and whether authorities would be ready, especially because threats were still recent and passions were high. Many people believe that Kendrick Lamar's choice to include Toronto on his tour was a direct reaction to the threats he had received. The importance was immediately recognized by an industry analyst. The decision to play in Drake's hometown was seen as either a risky miscalculation or an act of brave resistance, particularly in light of security concerns and public threats. The atmosphere was heightened by the suspense around Kendrick's potential performance of Not Like Us in Toronto. The psychological impact of that moment was evident, as the lyrics took aim at Drake and the recent violence outside his estate. This was no longer merely a rap fight. It was now psychological combat. In what started out as a lyrical rivalry, both sides applied pressure and gained an advantage by using threats, imagery, and even actual events. The line separating reality from act has become dangerously hazy. Having navigated his own notorious feuds, 50 Cent provided a shrewd viewpoint. Success often brings backlash, he said, adding that artists are sometimes singled out not only for their behavior but also for the way their success affects other people. In Drake's instance, 50 pointed out that the animosity surrounding him might have been exacerbated by his own success. Another layer was added in the meantime by the corporate response. Both singers are signed to Universal Music Group, which was put in a unique position to deal with growing real-world dangers to its own talent. Drake, one of the artists, was documenting real-life violence. Kendrick, the other, was charged with using imagery and music to incite it. Did more than simply distance itself from accusations of payola or bots when it denied Drake's assertions. In order to defend itself against claims that its backing of Not Like Us may have contributed to an atmosphere of actual danger, it adopted a far more assertive posture. This was fundamentally no longer about who got the best rap beat. When lyrics start to affect actual life, it becomes an issue of how far things may go and who is responsible when the results become violent. It was difficult to ignore the timeline that was constructed by the events leading up to the Drake-Kendrick dispute. The shooting outside Drake's house happened a few days after Not Like US hit its highest level of popularity. Soon after, Top 5 made public threats, which were extensively reported and documented until his eventual arrest months later. A pattern that connected poetic attacks to actual violence seemed to emerge from each development, which seemed to build upon the one before it. What caused the circumstance? The combination of conventional street-level conduct and contemporary social media reach proved more unstable. Once local threads were now becoming viral, reaching millions of people and increasing the pressure to demonstrate purpose in front of a worldwide audience. Serious concerns were raised by this conflict between trustworthiness in real life and online performance. The transnational scope of the feud is an additional challenge. Since the instances happened in both Canada and the US, police enforcement had to deal with disparate legal frameworks, disparate protocols, and divergent cultural views on how to resolve celebrity disputes. Maintaining safety and reducing animosity was more difficult due to cross-border tension. The difficulties were not merely physical. They also included legal wrangling and corporate power conflicts. Drake's lawsuit against Universal Music Group is at the heart of it all. According to his court documents, G allegedly manipulated the streaming market to Kendrick's advantage. Lamar, the lawsuit claims that UMG participated in Poliola-style tactics, lowered Spotify license rates, and employed bots to intentionally increase dislikes on digital platforms. These assertions point to a more extensive tactic in which industry participants shape the outcome, not only in terms of music but also in terms of perception. And the distinction between competition and consequence becomes hazy when public action is influenced by that view. Kendrick Lamar's recent introspection provides a glimpse into his artistic philosophies. He admitted, "I don't think I knew exactly what my role was early on. I may have had hints of it, but now I can state with certainty that it's to express myself and things that people can't say every day so that they can truly relate to it and experience it from the most vulnerable place." However, it begs the question of authenticity if corporate influence boosted that expression. Did the artist-audience relationship develop naturally, or was it manipulated by digital manipulation and marketing tactics? This is the entertainment industry's new reality. These days, technology enables coordinated social media campaigns, bot networks, and algorithmic gimmicks to mimic significant cultural events while covertly furthering corporate objectives. Whether or not it actually occurred, the purportedly tearful phone call represents something more significant. The emotional costs incurred by artists in a field that frequently views them as pawns. The fact that Kendrick called Lucian Grange in distress would indicate that he had an understanding that he was a member of something much greater than music. Vulnerability can be used as a weapon in a corporate conflict, even if the call never occurred and was only a calculated rumor. Answers might finally come from Drake's continuing legal battle. In contrast to social media, rumors, the court will need documents, sworn witnesses, and proof. The public may eventually find out what transpired behind closed doors as the case develops. Deeper problems inside the industry as a whole, not simply between two artists, are exposed by this whole story. To what extent is the experience of fans authentic? And how frequently are artists forced into roles, stories, and conflicts for the sake of organizations that never suffer the repercussions? The main query is no longer limited to Drake and Kendrick. It concerns the manipulation of digital impact, corporate power, and emotive narrative in the contemporary music industry. Please remember to ring the bell, like, and subscribe if you thought this video was enlightening so you don't miss the next one. Due to the fact that the music's backstory is far from